Have you found yourself navigating a dark night of the soul? Are you craving a deeper connection with the divine feminine? Are you ready to integrate the balanced union of the masculine and feminine within? Then let's get started on the journey towards wholeness to reclaim your sovereign soul. My name is Cynthia Clark. Over the past several decades, I have undergone many dark nights of the soul. My healing journey has been a reclamation of my sovereign divinity. Whether you're just starting out on your self-healing journey or have been exploring techniques for many years, Discover Divinity offers an opportunity to uncover the new possibilities for discovering and reclaiming the innate wisdom within. It is time to discover the new possibilities. It is time to discover you. In today's episode, we are unpacking the key differences between shame and guilt and recognizing some of the toxic foundations that use control, fear, and manipulation to influence our emotions and our behaviors. And why understanding this can be so transformative for our personal growth and development and lasting change. We're also going to dive into how these emotions fit into our broader emotional energy, as well as who we are as holistic beings, while touching in on a couple of my favorite experts, Brene Brown and David Hawkins. So if you're ready, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to the Discover Divinity Podcast, Reclaim Your Sovereign Soul. My name is Cynthia Clark. I am your host and the founder of Discover Divinity and discoveringdivinity.com. In today's episode, shame versus guilt, breaking free from the toxic foundations of control, fear, and manipulation in our emotions. We are getting into two powerful emotions that shape the way we see ourselves and others: shame and guilt. These emotions, while closely related, affect us in very different ways. So understanding them is crucial for our emotional health and personal growth. In this episode, we are exploring how shame and guilt influence our lives, how they differ, and why understanding these emotions is so essential for lasting change as well as our mental well-being. Let's start with defining shame and guilt. Shame is often described as a deeply personal or heavy emotion that can be extremely destructive. It's more than just a reaction to an action. It's a feeling that there is something inherently wrong with who we are. It goes beyond what we do to how we perceive our self-worth. And unlike guilt, which is about specific actions, shame can lead to a more generalized sense of failure. Shame often carries the thought, I am bad. It isolates us. It makes us believe that we're unworthy of love, connection, or success. And an example could be when a person might fail to do something at work or school, and rather than simply thinking, I made a mistake, they spiral into, I'm not good enough, or become critical, and they internalize negatively the choice that they made, and it impacts their confidence, their relationships, and emotional well-being. And something about shame that we need to understand, it is actually something that intrinsically as a human, we aren't designed to feel or navigate. It is something that has been projected from an outside source, another person, that will create an energy that comes toward us that then perpetuates this feeling of I'm not good enough and self-criticism. Guilt, on the other hand, is feeling tied directly to specific actions. It's an emotional response to a recognition that we've done something that may be hurtful or against our intrinsic values. However, guilt does not target our identity. It's about behavior, not the self. It brings us to a place to acknowledge our actions, to apologize and make reparations when it's necessary. So, for example, if you hurt someone's feelings with a careless comment, you might feel guilty about the action, but you understand that it's a mistake that doesn't define your character, your worth, your value, and guilt, differently from shame, can actually help us to encourage reflection or correction or change, motivating us to make things right and grow. So now that we understand the difference, we can become more aware that shame really isn't anything that's useful. Guilt, on the other hand, can be, because it doesn't promote those negative self-critical judgments and belief systems. And so something that I encourage all of my clients to do, as when they start to notice that they are experiencing a shame-based thought, perhaps I am bad, I am dumb, I am stupid, I am such a failure, ... You probably have some of those automatic thought responses that come up in your brain, and being able to start to flag some of that energy when it is a shame-based frequency is your first step of empowerment. It's acknowledging, wow, I had a shame-based thought. And instantaneously, when we recognize that shame is not something that is innately purposeful or designed to build us or help us grow, it's instantaneously something that we call out for what it is, and we trash it energetically. We take that and go, wow, that's BS, and we dump it in the garbage, light a fire to it, and dismiss it from the energy field. And so that's an energy technique you can use, is to start to flag some of your shame-based thoughts, because more than likely you are having them. If you are human and you've grown up in toxic environments, more than likely you have had shame projected onto you. So hopefully that energy technique helps. And while you write that down or perhaps use that, let's go ahead and expand on the societal and cultural influences that shame has had. Shame is not a universal innate emotion. Just like I said, it's shaped and amplified by society, cultural expectations. It's something that has been projected. Different cultures define what is considered shameful, and these definitions are often tied to family structures, gender norms, and collective or individual values. So some examples we could refer to is in more collectivist cultures like Japan, shame is central. They use shame to maintain their social harmony. A person may feel intense shame, not just for their own failure, but for causing the group or the family to lose face. And this cultural dynamic often reinforces the idea that personal identity is tightly connected to the group's reputation. In more individualistic cultures, such as Western societies, guilt is very prevalent, but also shame is used in these structures and cultures. And so you may recognize some of these similarities, but with individualistic cultures, the focus is on personal responsibility, with people being taught to take ownership for their actions, make amends, and strive to correct mistakes. In our family dynamics, some of the first experiences that we have of shame come from our family structures. Parents, caregivers, even teachers can unknowingly perpetuate shame-based behaviors through their words and actions. Shame-based parenting might involve phrases like, you're a bad girl, you're a bad boy, you never get anything right. And this message targets the identity of a child, embedding the belief system that they're inherently flawed. And you can see that in many structural systems, but for right now, we're focusing on the family. There's also guilt-based parenting, so really paying attention to the difference. This may involve what you did hurt someone, but you can make it better. It teaches a child that while they can make a mistake, their core worth still remains intact, and it approaches a better sense of self-awareness and accountability without damaging the self-esteem. So in addition to family dynamics, let's go ahead and move on to the psychology behind shame and guilt. Chronic shame is a toxic force in an individual's life. It can lead to depression, anxiety, low self-esteem, as well as self-destructive behaviors and patterns. And it leads people to believe that they're unworthy of love, connection, success, which in turn fuels isolation or withdrawal. Those that struggle with shame may also engage in addictive behaviors such as substance abuse or develop conditions like eating disorders in an attempt to cope with emotional pain. Brene Brown's groundbreaking work on shame has illuminated how deeply damaging this emotion can be, and she argues that shame thrives in secrecy, silence, and judgment. According to her research, the antidote to shame is vulnerability. When we allow ourselves to be seen, share our imperfections, and connect authentically with others, shame loses its power over us. By embracing vulnerability, we break from the cycle of self-judgment and shame-based isolation. And while guilt can still be emotionally intense, it tends to have a more constructive role. Guilt prompts individuals to take responsibility, seek reconciliation, and work toward repairing relationships. Unlike shame, guilt doesn't foster feelings of unworthiness. Rather, it's still in that arena of encouraging growth and accountability. Psychologist June Price Tangney's research has shown that people who experience guilt tend to have more positive behaviors, such as apologizing, offering help, and working toward reconciliation. Guilt, when processed healthily, promotes empathy, responsible decision-making, and personal growth. Let's go ahead and expand on the energy and emotional vibrations of shame and guilt. David Hawkins, in his book Power versus Force, presents a scale of human consciousness. Emotions are categorized based on their vibrational frequency. Shame and guilt are considered low-frequency emotions, but with the key distinction. Shame operates at a very low level of consciousness, reinforcing feelings of powerless, loathing, self-loathing, and disconnection. While guilt is still a low-energy emotion, it can serve as a motivating force, driving us toward responsibility, correction, and healing. Hawkins describes about shame as a reactive state where individuals feel stuck, powerless, and emotionally drained, and it keeps people trapped in cycles of negative self-talk, perpetuating feelings of inadequacy. This state also often prevents people from taking the necessary steps to improve their lives or their relationships. While guilt is a low energy emotion, it's more action oriented. It encourages people to make steps toward repair and reconciliation while promoting pro-social behaviors. Guilt is a transformative energy as it compels individuals to face their mistakes and work toward making things right. So not only are we experiencing family dynamics that are impacting these roots of shame and manipulation, fear, and control, we also get to step into a space of awareness where we recognize the societal structures, whether it is in politics, religion, different educational systems, where the use of fear, shame, manipulation, and control are perpetuating the root of shame. And the way that we do this first is by recognizing, coming into an awareness that it exists. Second of all, starting to be aware of that in our own mind, in our own thought processes. And like I said, putting a red flag up and recognizing if there is a thought or maybe something that is coming from outside that is perpetuating shame, that's perpetuating self-rejection or self-criticism or self-judgment, and creating the I am statements that move into the negativity. This is where we get to call it out for what it is. So recognizing, having that awareness for what's going on inside, and making sure that we're really picking up and tagging that energy so that we can start to work with what's going on in our own mind, but also recognizing it from outside. When you start to notice others that may use this tactic of shame and fear and manipulation to control others, you start to recognize it in some of these structures and systems from the outside. And so in that recognition, it also helps you step into more of an empowering space to realize that that's not something to take personally. And it's also a space to invite you into learning how to set healthy boundaries. And in a future episode, I will be going over different ways to set healthy boundaries so that you can start to recognize where shame-based ideologies, shame-based behaviors are present on your external environment, and learn how to navigate that, creating those boundaries so that you're not internalizing that anymore. And really, we are working with generations of time that has used this structure. It's a very archaic structure using shame and fear and manipulation and control to control other humans. And it's in the DNA patterns. And so that's why doing our inner work, doing our inner child work, our ancestral healing is so important so that we can get rid of those negative patterns and belief systems and programs that are connected into the subconscious and unconscious mind. And when we use proper techniques and tools, we are able to help eliminate, release, and let go of that programming so that then we are having a greater ability to then take control of what's going on in our own internal system, our minds, and being able to call that out easier and easier. And the more you learn how to call that out on a regular basis and replace those things with honoring a space of compassion and love for yourself, it becomes easier and easier. But these are patterns and programs that we're having to rewire. And I love doing this work with my clients, being able to help them come into a space of really disconnecting the cords and toxic programs of shame and using their empowered self ability and sovereign soul to step into a space of true authenticity and really living in healthy, empowered state. So when we heal from shame, we come into a space of experiencing a profound shift in our emotional energy. And just like Brene Brown highlights, as we also come into a space of embracing our imperfections, being open about our struggles, we can transform shame into this reflection and source of strength. So after we disconnect that and come into healthier behavior patterns, we stop hiding our flaws and own them as part of a human experience. It's part of growth. And we move into a place of powerlessness to one of empowerment. This shift allows us to step into our authentic selves and break free from the cycle of self-judgment. So rather than avoiding or suppressing guilt, we can use it as a tool for growth by responding to guilt with responsibility and empathy and disconnecting the cords of shame. like eliminating that from our vocabulary and our psyche, and really just using guilt as a positive force that can propel us toward personal transformation. So, as always, I am here to support you. If you feel like a personal one on one session would be serving to you, and as we've explored the differences between shame and guilt, how they manifest in our lives, are shaped by our culture, the psychological impact that they have on our well being, we are aware that shame only keeps us stuck in cycles of self judgment and isolation, while we can now transform and take the aspect of guilt to be a catalyst for personal growth and healing. So, my invitation for you is to take a moment to reflect on how shame and guilt shows up in your own life. How might you shift from a shame-driven life, behaviors, thoughts, to using guilt instead to drive action, but always allowing yourself to not stay stuck in that field of energy. Using the energy technique, perhaps, that I shared earlier to start to help you make change while also embracing your vulnerability and self-compassion. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. I am looking forward for you to join me in our next show. And remember, today, you are enough. You are always more than enough. And I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Thank you for listening to the Discover Divinity Podcast. If this podcast resonates with you, I invite you to check out discoveringdivinity.com. You will find resources to reclaim your sacred, sovereign spirituality. Here, you can join the Discover Divinity community, where we have free online community classes, as well as done-for-you courses and programs. Navigating the unique personal path to wholeness can feel overwhelming at times. If you would like further support or are ready to take your healing empowerment to the next level, I offer one-on-one intuitive sessions in a variety of different packages where we will discover, release, create, reclaim. Discover your innate wisdom that lies within. Release the imbalances that prevent you from living your truth. Create harmony in body, heart, mind, spirit, energy, and relationships. Reclaim your sovereign soul. It is time to discover new possibilities. It is time to discover you. Thank you for listening to the Discover Divinity Podcast. If this podcast resonates with you, I invite you to check out discoveringdivinity.com. You will find resources to reclaim your sacred, sovereign spirituality. Here, you can join the Discover Divinity community, where we have free online community classes, as well as done-for-you courses and programs. Navigating the unique personal path to wholeness can feel overwhelming at times. If you would like further support or are ready to take your healing empowerment to the next level, I offer one-on-one intuitive sessions in a variety of different packages where we will discover, release, create, reclaim. Discover your innate wisdom that lies within. Release the imbalances that prevent you from living your truth. Create harmony in body, heart, mind, spirit, energy, and relationships. Reclaim your sovereign soul. It is time to discover new possibilities. It is time to discover you.